An alien invasion powered by the brains of its victims. We'll break down that and more as we look at the 2010 film Skyline. Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. So I distinctly remember the first time I watched Skyline. It was the summer after my first year of university. I had gotten a new laptop and was consuming everything I could get my hands on science fiction. I watched this and Battle LA in one night, which makes sense as they're both similar in a general sense. They're of course set in Los Angeles, but they also follow the sort of on-the-ground resistance to a larger alien threat. Now, I'll give my thoughts on the film towards the end of today's video. I really do want to focus on the tactics and the aliens themselves primarily, but I will say, despite the reputation this film may have, the alien designs and their craft are legitimately cool. This was a movie made with a budget reportedly of $10 million in the late 2000s, and I think it looks great. There were also two sequels to this film. We're not going to cover them at all in today's video. I will if there's any interest, except for the fact that I will be using the name of the alien species established later on, the Harvesters. I think it works. Funny enough, Harvester is also the name established for the Independence Day aliens in its sequel, but whatever. We see most of the invasion from the perspective of Los Angeles. It begins at 4:27 in the morning. Interestingly, although we don't learn the specifics, it does seem like humanity has some forewarning of the coming attack. We see a flight of helicopters traveling overhead the afternoon before, but across Los Angeles, glowing blue orbs fall from space to the planet's surface, and it seems like they are clustered around population centers. Now, note, these orbs do not fall to the surface as they might if they were carried in asteroids. Rather, they travel perpendicular to the ground. As we see later, these are being disgorged from alien motherships. We actually don't get a great look at the first wave, but the blue light emanating from these orbs is shown to attract humans. There are some mind control properties, at which point they are literally sucked away. One of the characters in the film, Jared, has his first of several encounters with this blue mind control light, though he's able to be saved, although he deals with lasting effects throughout the next couple of days. We see, however, across LA that people are drawn to these lights, and as the orbs retreat, the internet stops updating, TV stations broadcast without anchors, phone lines still work, but no one's there. It's not like a typical disaster film where upon the alien invasion, the phone lines are overwhelmed. It's like the opposite. This, however, was only a first strike by the Harvester, and the full invasion, the second wave, kicks off several hours later. The orbs reappear, seemingly again targeting population centers, and we more explicitly this time see thousands and thousands of people sucked towards now descending motherships. And it's at this point that we get an interesting insight into how the aliens work, the utility of the blue light. The light itself is a tool. It's not necessary for the alien abduction. When the motherships land over population centers, for example, we get a look at the humans being sucked up and we can hear them screaming. These ones are not under direct control. They're just so proximate to the ship, they're being sucked up directly. Those who are hit with the blue light mind control seem to go on their own. One character who also snaps out of the light describes it as being beautiful, and it clearly has hypnotic properties. Some of the aliens even have lights attached to tentacles, and it reminds me a lot of how a hypnotist or even a snake charmer would use motion to try to draw in the eye. I believe this light would have been specially engineered for humanity. If the aliens were invading a different species, which they undoubtedly have in the past, perhaps the light is a different color or at least a different composition. But it's at this second wave where the aliens make their first appearance. So let's speak more of the aliens themselves, and it's my belief that we don't actually see the true intelligence of the Harvesters in this movie, regardless of how the sequels position the universe. So there are 4, later 5 clear alien technologies / buyouts we see in this film. And the language is important here because the things the humans are facing off against are clearly part machine, part living. They are powered by brains and spinal columns, but they obviously do have an artificial component. That's part of the reason why I don't think we see the true aliens in this film, but I'll return back to that in just a second. The largest technology type is what I'll call the alien mothership, the large vessels we see positioned over population centers. It should be noted that the motherships seem to have significant variety in appearance and perhaps functionality. It's one thing I quite like about the movie. Honestly, the motherships are mostly just seen operating in the background, but even their silhouettes vary quite dramatically, and presumably their functions as well. That sort of reinforces the idea that these ships are probably grown rather than produced in some standard way. From the motherships, we see what I'll call drop ships. These are large alien flyers. They remind me a lot, actually, of the Sentinels from the Matrix and the real world. And the only reason I'm not calling them Sentinels is because I'm saving that name for a smaller entity that they can disgorge. We see this specifically during the apartment scene. A small Sentinel is released from its larger drop ship, where its smaller size allows it to more effectively hunt down individual humans, and the Sentinels end up being the foot soldiers of the Harvesters, lack of feet notwithstanding. All of the Harvester technology is shown to make use of the blue hypnotic lights, as well as tentacles and other grabbing appendages. Harvester biots do not seem to make use of lethal technology. They don't shoot lasers, and even when faced with aerial combat, will simply sacrifice their own forms in order to protect their motherships. We do see that the appendages can stun humans, but their goal here, as we'll get to in a second, is to simply consume more beings. Harvesters prefer to take humans as a whole, but will, in some cases, satisfy themselves with just their brain and spine. We'll talk about why in just a second. Before though, let's get to the final 2 Harvester variants. The first we'll just call a walker. These do seem also to vary in size and specific design, but we see towards the end of the film that these are actually piloted by another life form. The sort of mantle of a walker is destroyed, and we can see what you'd probably assume on first watch is the true form of the Harvester. But I don't believe this is the case, and let's talk now about the brain sucking. So first of all, and we're not really focusing on the melodrama of the film here, the invasion goes very well for the aliens, and the humans are able to offer no real resistance. The film ends with the 2 final surviving main characters being sucked up into one of the alien motherships, and we learn that human brains are being used to create new alien biots. I call these biots specifically because I don't think this is a true life form. Rather, it's a mechanical organic shell the brain is being inserted into. Now, I don't believe a human consciousness is powering these machines. It's not like the Ceruvi from Star Wars Legends who power their technology with souls. Rather, I think the brain and the rest of the extracted nervous system is being used essentially as a computer for these machines. So again, to summarize, you've got the mechanic organic shell, the brain is inserted, used like a computer, adding what is essentially another battle droid or drone to the alien force. We see specifically that this produces the pilot alien type we briefly glimpse earlier, but we know too that the Sentinels are powered by these same brains, so presumably they're directly created in this process as well. It's very possible that the dropship and the walkers, and certainly as well the motherships, are produced in some other process. But I also think it just as likely that it comes down to the same principle, brains being used as computers, just perhaps at different scales. I think it's pretty likely that as this is all happening on Earth, that perhaps in orbit, the true masters of the Harvester fleet are sitting in non-combat vessels. So yeah, we have the alien types, we know that they're using humans as a form of computer. Presumably, they've also conquered other species and become more powerful each time they do so. What happens during the invasion? Well, it goes extremely well. Even without using overt lethal force against humanity, the aliens cannot be stopped. Individual biots can be harmed or even killed, but as we see with the Sentinels, if the brain is destroyed, the Sentinel can seemingly survive for some time without the brain and can also repair itself by securing a new one. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these machines even have redundant brains if the first one is injured. Either way, we see them survive great trauma, though they aren't unkillable. If you can essentially disable a Sentinel while destroying its brain, it probably won't be able to revive itself. The motherships themselves are, of course, the most impressive entity we see on Earth. They have incredible regenerative abilities. Midway through the second day, the US military launches a strike against the motherships, and although they don't have traditional defenses, the dropships and Sentinels essentially sacrifice themselves to protect their carrier, but even when hit with a tactical nuclear strike, the mothership is able to recover, showing incredible regenerative abilities. So on the second day, after the harvesters have been mostly successful in consuming LA's human population, we see not just the quick retaliation by the US drone force, but later a carrier group appear off the coast of LA. I always found this bit interesting because combined with the drone strike, it almost does feel like maybe the invasion isn't worldwide. The US has dispatched a carrier fleet pretty quickly to respond, though the resistance ends up being ineffective. Human troops are able to damage or even destroy some of the alien forces. We see a second air battle, this time with manned jets instead of drones, but eventually the US forces are wiped out and we can see the carrier group sinking off the coast, which I always thought was a really cool detail. We then learn that by day 3, the harvesters have successfully invaded LA, New York, Hong Kong, London, and many other places, presumably the entire world essentially. Really, the only hope for humanity comes at the end of the film. Eric Balfour's character, Jared, sees the blue hypnotic light during the first wave and is dealing with the after effects throughout the entire film. At first, it manifests physically, but towards the end, it's clearly impacting his behavior, but also his physical strength. During the final scene of the film, where our heroes are sucked up into the harvester ship, we see two interesting things. For one, they identify Elaine's pregnancy and sort of move her off to the side. For two, Eric Balfour's transformation process does not go right. Through some means, whether it was through repeated exposure to the blue light or perhaps the power of love, he maintains control even in his new mecha-organic form, and he uses that to save his girlfriend and fight off the harvesters on their ship. That, unfortunately, is where the film ends, and for now, where the story of Skylines ends as well. Just briefly, I do want to give my thoughts on the movie, because, I don't know, is it great? No. You can definitely see, aside from the special effects, the budget at work. Most of the movie takes place either in a hotel room or sort of just running around the same complex. It is a bit repetitive in that sense. A lot of the characters aren't fleshed out. And I mean, the end of the movie is like a weird flash of image, comic book style continuation of the story. But I don't know. The aliens themselves are so cool, and I think the spectacle of it all is good enough that I'm willing to forgive a lot of that. Like, it's a very watchable movie. There are some really funny choices, like Donald Faison is the sex symbol in the movie. Angel Bautista from Dexter ends up leading the group for a while. And I will say, there is a bit of a tonal shift in the last, 5 minutes. That final Matrix-esque section is incredibly dark. Obviously, the idea of humans being repurposed by aliens for their own means is not new. We see that in War of the Worlds, countless other films, but the depiction here is fairly terrifying. I mentioned that the aliens do seem to be willing to grab brains on their own when necessary, but it seems like they like to keep their captors alive, probably because it gives them more time to process them. But in the very least, it's an interesting movie. One of the funnier things, I never noticed this before, we've got to give credit to Red Bull, at least partially, for this movie. They obviously kicked some cash towards the production. There's a scene where they're preparing to run, and just for an instant, we see among the supplies, they're taking just a load of Red Bull. But guys, that's it. Let me know if you'd like to see the other 2 films in this series covered. There's also, I believe, a 3rd sequel that's finished but not released and maybe will never be released, unless this YouTube series does really well. I'm joking, but hey, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.